Welcome everyone, Christine here with the discussion about Teclis of the High Elves in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Teclis is probably one of the worst Legendary Lords in the game. He certainly is the worst Legendary Lord of the High Elves to play a campaign as, but he's also got one of the worst campaigns in the entirety of Warhammer 3. Now usually when I say that, when we talk about some of the worst campaigns in this game, it's typically because the Legendary Lord is not necessarily that great, or the race is not that great. So that's one of the problems, for instance, with Kugath. Nurgle is just not that good. Kugath himself is a powerful Legendary Lord, it's just Nurgle is a really bad race. In the case of Teclis, well, I think this situation that I found myself in is just indicative of the kind of things that you're going to be dealing with in his campaign. Yes, it is a campaign that just doesn't work because of how Creative Assembly handled it. Your starting position, your situation, your climate affairs as well. It ends up falling flat on its face. It shouldn't. It could be a great campaign, but unfortunately it really is a bad one, an awful one, in more ways than one. Now Teclis has good faction effects. He gets +5 hero recruit rank for Lore Masters Mages, and a Lord recruit rank for Archmages. And for mages, it is increased by 2 because of the War Crown of Sapphire, which, interestingly enough, also applies to Archmages because you can recruit rank 8 Archmages. He does have 2 quests he gets after turn 1. It would be nice to get them from the very beginning of a campaign to get certain items. He has 4 items available to him, and they're all focused on buffing magic. Also, he gets a hero recruit rank and the ability of recruiting mages in all provinces, and hero capacity for mages. So you can run around with 2 mages relatively early in Teclis' campaign, which is a nice benefit, if you will. He also gets allied recruitment cost -50% and diplomatic relations with mages, high elves, wood elves, lizardmen, and dwarves. That sounds all really good. The allied recruitment cost gives you some variety in your army because you can use that to add necessary variety. Typically, I would say you would go with Saurus in an army, like, because you can ally the lizardmen, but that's not necessarily the entire affair. The reason this campaign doesn't work isn't that Teclis is a bad lord, or that he's lacking in power. He has a lot of magical power that just, well, ends up working fairly well. He does have good faction effects, not necessarily the best of the High Elves, but hey, recruiting rank 8 lords, Archmages, is a significant benefit. That shouldn't be underestimated. So what is really the problem in Teclis' campaign? It has to do with starting position, climate, and just the dynamics he's dealing with. And yeah, you have jungle and savanna available. So what that really means in practical terms is you've got the vast majority of Lustra, though not all of it, quite crucially. You've got the vast majority of Lustra available to you, but you don't start in Lustria. You start in the Southlands. And you don't have desert climate being good for you. In fact, it's uninhabitable, so your expansion path over here in the south is limited. Basically, you can take all of the jungle territory if you're willing to fight Krokgar and Tic-Tac-Toe, but you've also got other problems. You start close to Kairos, and you're going to end up in a war with Kairos. More so not because Kairos is necessarily going to declare war on you, that can be avoided, but because every Tzeentchian faction has a tendency of using their abilities to yank one settlement from you and give it to someone else. Usually they'll do it to themselves, so guess what? You'll end up in a war with Kairos just because he'll take one of the settlements you want, give it to himself, or he'll give it to another faction. Basically, you want to declare war on Kairos as quickly as possible. Or maybe wait for him to take one of your settlements, then declare war on him. That might be one of the best choices you do have in this campaign. For instance, over here in this campaign, it was this particular settlement, after I had just taken it, that he took from me, took it back, declared war on me. But the problem is, Kairos is down south in the Chaos Wastes, where the climate is uninhabitable, the distances are great, so control, replenishment, income is really bad. Even constructing anything here is just really a huge money sink. I mean, you can do it probably, right? Get some hero capacity from this, get some trading agreements over here. And the issue is not defeating Kairos. Defeating Kairos is relatively easy, believe it or not, because he's going to recruit a bunch of blue horrors in his own army. What you do, that's easy enough to defeat. His magical ability is certainly strong, but you can send an army like this, and this is precisely what I did. I built an army like this. I put the one noble I can hit early on in the campaign over here, because I knew I was going to need that replenishment. Put the mage, put a bunch of archers, and just wipe the floor with him. Also, because Axolotl is going to make his way east, so if you defeat one of Kairos' armies or two of his armies, then that just gives Axolotl the ability of wiping him out, which he did right here. He wiped out his capital, specifically two of his settlements. I dealt with the rest of it, but it's just such a significant waste of time, and that means that this campaign pace is substantially slower. And ultimately, even if you play everything right, you realize that the territory you have is just going to end up being very, very limited. Because you can't go north, because all the climate to the north, the wasteland, the desert, even the mountains, though to a lesser extent, they're just not good climate to build an empire. So all you've got is the jungle. You have a choice with regards to the jungle. You can either fight tic-tac-toe and sell the starting province there, the western jungles, to Volkmar, make an alliance with him, or you can make an alliance with tic-tac-toe, because yeah, just start your campaign, take the initial province. By the way, you might want to wait before taking this particular settlement, because his quest requires him to win. One of his quests requires him to win 2 battles against Siege. On turn 1, you're going to take Dawn's Light, so yeah, you might want to just sack the settlement 1 turn, then wait the turn, attack it again after that, so you can get the quest item. You will want to send an army over here, build a secondary army into the jungle of the gods to at least fight 1 battle with Skaven, 1 quest battle against Skaven, 1 battle against the settlement of Skaven to get 2 quest items. They're not really going to give you any rewards. Like if Teclis was getting 5,000 gold for each of those quests, that would be something. He's not. He will get vision over Lustria through one of his quest battles, fair enough, and he will get vision with Ulthuan, or rather Calador, through the second of his quest battles. So it is reasonable enough to, you know, build up a relationship with Tyrion, which is what I've done to get vision with Ulthuan. Confederating Ulthuan, however, is just going to be a no-go. By the time you even arrive there, even if you're rushing for it, by the time you'd arrive there, basically it would be a situation that would not work. Like, this is the thing about Elfarion and Emmerich and Alif and Arsh. Sure, they start far away from Ulthuan, but they can get access to it for various means. Either through the fact that you do start with a settlement in Ulthuan if you're playing Elfarion, or the fact that it's close enough as Alif and Ar from your starting position, and you also have a quest over there to get the Shrine of Cain. Or if you're playing Emmerich, you get the quest Confederate Calador, which would give you vision. And also you have a quest battle over there as well. So there are possibilities. And Ulthuan is so important in a High Elven campaign. There's a lot of power to be gained from Ulthuan. Like, really good settlements, really good income, good climate. Ulthuan is a powerhouse of an economic center, and you just don't have access to it. And also, you don't have access to the other legendary lords, so inherently, Teclis is the worst campaign of the High Elves. Now, I guess it makes sense in his campaign for him to be on his own, doing his own thing. And he's also something of a prick, because, you know, we talk about Manfred in the Warhammer fan base about how he was responsible for the end of the world. Yeah, Teclis did far more than Manfred to bring about the end of the world. Yeah, that's the kind of person he is. All with the good intentions, I guess that's the difference. Teclis was at least trying to do some good out of it, whereas Manfred was just, well, being extremely selfish on the subject. And hey, Teclis did die trying to save the world at the end of the day, unlike Manfred, who killed him. Regardless, though, regardless of that particular situation, it just ends up being a fairly limited campaign. And it has to be said, the best thing you can do in this campaign, like, you build a second army, you take the Skaven out over here in the Jungle and Gods, then you sail over here against Kairos, you fight him. If you can fight one army at a time, you can win. If you fight 2 armies, that might be dicey, but you can still win, because High Elven archers are just going to hard counter Blue Horrors and any of the other units that Kairos will recruit. If he was throwing more Warriors of Chaos, of Siege, and Forsaken of Siege, that would be a different affair, but usually Kairos will throw a bunch of chaff against you. But then you just got to spend a lot of turns sailing over here into Lustria. And let me say this, who exactly wants to enter the Lustrian Thunderdome deliberately? It's one thing to start in the Thunderdome and make it work. It's another thing to decide to sail from the other part of the world across the ocean, because yes, this is an ocean, to sail across the ocean to enter Lustria to take territory. Also fun enough to also declare war on these High Elves. This campaign would be better if you had an easy access, or like if there was some sea lane over here from the Citadel of Dusk to Fortress of Dawn, if you maybe start to do the settlement over here. Like, I would take a dual start with here, like having to focus on both Lustria and Dawn's Light, the Fortress of Dawn, but we don't do that. We don't do that in this campaign. But you do want to end up in Lustria because, well, it is part of your campaign victory conditions. And you also can't ignore Kairos. You might say, oh, you could just ignore Kairos. No, he's part of your short campaign victory condition, which is really powerful. High Elves really care about their short campaign victory conditions. Now, this is not the worst short campaign victory condition. I would say actually Tyrion has it worse in that respect. But the fact that you're having to conquer territory that's not at all useful to you, you can't even get any income from it because, yeah, you're going to get constant rebellions. I guess you could leave an army, a small enough army over here, build a small enough army, get constant rebellions, eventually stabilize the situation. Yeah, this is the thing about Teclis' campaign dynamics. You are playing an outdated campaign over here. That's what's important to understand. The campaign dynamics that he has in play over here are just very, very outdated by every measure. Like, this is a campaign style that no longer really works within the context of Warhammer 3. Because, like, Warhammer 3 is all about achieving as much power as quickly as possible, whereas Teclis' campaign is very, very slow. And it doesn't even have the payoff that you do have in other slow campaigns. Because in this one, what being slow means is that it's going to be enormously difficult to confederate all for one. Eventually, you can make it work using copious amounts of influence over here for intrigue at court, but you don't have any kind of benefit with influence, which is a bit bizarre, because you might think that one of the most renowned quote-unquote elven diplomats, which Teclis actually is in the lore, would have an influence benefit. But no, Alariel has the influence benefit. And that's just, I guess it makes sense for her to be that diplomat, but I also think the benefit she has makes far more sense for Teclis, just my personal perspective on that. And yes, over here I'm trying to outrun the Skaven, which hopefully should be a thing, because if I have to fight 3 stacks of Skaven right there, it's like, that's not going to end well for me. And when you arrive in Lustria, well, enjoy dealing with everything that happens here. So this campaign is really not worth playing, and it's quite a shame from my perspective, because I think Teclis could be a really good Legendary Lord to actually play. What's also annoying about Teclis is because of where he starts, you have various Legendary Lords in the game, Dark Elven ones specifically, that have a victory campaign victory condition that requires them to wipe out all the High Elven factions. Emmerich is annoying, to be fair, but actually the most annoying faction to actually wipe out is Teclis. I mean, you might hope that he gets wiped out. It might happen. The Lizardmen might declare war on him. Kairos might wipe out. Typically, Kairos will leave him alone. He won't wipe him out. Usually what will happen in this campaign is, like, either Teclis survives for a long time and is just an annoying bastard to deal with, or the Lizardmen wipe him out. You can hope for that situation if you're playing High Elves. This is, by the way, the reason we need an update in this campaign. It's not just about having a better experience as Teclis, which I don't think his campaign experience has ever been that great. Because, like, consider the Vortex campaign, why that didn't work. You had the Vortex campaign situation where the idea of the Vortex campaign, like, the idea of Teclis is to be this diplomat. He was, even in the launch cinematic, the launch trailer, rather, of Warhammer 2, he's making a point that he's going to go ally the Lizardmen, and yet you can't really do that in his campaign, the Vortex campaign. So from day one, this campaign has always been questionable. You can finally play him as someone who's going to ally the Lizardmen and play him the deployment, but he's just in this isolated corner, which doesn't really make sense for him. Like, I'm quite serious in this. If he started in the middle of Lustria, that would be much better, but I personally think that, or hell, if he swapped positions with Alberic, yeah, I know, crazy idea. If he swapped positions with Alberic, and if Alberic didn't have a quest to take Sartosa, which is, by the way, really annoying for him, that could actually end up working significantly better than what you're dealing with right now. Poor Alberic waste. But besides, you're not really interested. Besides, although you can take the jungle as a territory, here's the thing that adds to the slow pace of his campaign. The jungle takes longer to traverse than other terrain types. So yeah, you have jungle as a viable territory. Great, guess what? You're gonna end up with an inherently slow campaign because of that. That's the issue with the Lizardmen. Like, Teclis just represents many of the issues that various lords have. For the Dark Elves, he represents piss-poor victory conditions. For the Lizardmen, he represents just how... and for anyone that has to deal with jungle, including Alberic and Marcus Wolfhard, he just represents how bad it is to deal with that kind of climate, that kind of situation. And for many other legendary lords, he just represents a campaign that doesn't make sense because you ultimately want to go back to Wolf 1. I mean, you can win the campaign without doing so, sure, but the benefits you have, if you're looking to build a world empire as the elves, Teclis is not that campaign. If you're looking to play a short campaign, I guess if you're interested in fighting Kairos across the Castaways, absolutely, I guess, but it's not even good as a short campaign. So what is there to this campaign? It's not good in any respect, long-term or short-term or even medium-term. So you've got really nothing going for it. The only thing Teclis has going for him is his magical ability, which can be fun. He can be fun to use in battles, undeniably so, but that's really it. That's all he has going for him, which is quite a tragedy because he's one of the most interesting and compelling characters in the entire lore for Warhammer Fantasy. Hopefully, if Creative Assembly ever releases Old World, Total War Warhammer Old World, they will do a better job. Or how would they even call it, actually? Like, that title, by the way, Old World, Warhammer, Total War, something like that. I don't know. Costine signing out. Stay tuned for more.